The Clemson Tigers bring down the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs 48-20. Houston and I are here to discuss it. Before we do, make sure you hit the like button on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date on all of our exclusive Clemson content we put out every single week. All right, Houston, I was at the game. Were you at the game? I think you were at the game. No, you weren't at the game?
Not this week. I'll
Not
be
this week.
Not this week, but I'll be there more this year.
I cannot believe that you missed the light show. That's why I went to the game. I've been saying all week, I'm going for the light show, possibly staying for football. I actually ended up doing both. Obviously, it was an 8 o'clock game. Clemson Tigers pull away with a win, 48-20. Still a lot to clean up, as we'll discuss. But we wanted to start doing some videos. You know, we do our radio show. We wanted to start doing some videos more as well. But let's start with the beginning of the game. We know that the light show was amazing. I don't know how good it was on TV, but when they turned the lights out and they did We Will Rock You, and they did a spotlight on the hill on the rock, pretty freaking awesome, Houston. I wish that you had been there.
Well, the thing was, if you were watching at home, they had the cameras along with the team entering from their view on the hill. And so you got the full stadium with the lights on. Someone compared it akin to, and I'm not a big wrestling guy, but I saw someone out there compare it to an entrance almost for a WWE, event of some sorts. It looked good on TV, so I can only imagine. You can say that you went there for the first one, but I'm going to be there for one, hopefully, for, if we get a night game for NC State or Syracuse or Miami or South Carolina, I'm going to be there for that.
I think there's a 6-day game hold for NC State on the time, so we'll see what happens. Hopefully it'll be a night game. It'll be, I think, a good atmosphere because you're going to have a revenge game there. Two teams that are don't like each other that are going to be facing off in the Valley for sure. The TV, the scoreboard rather, the Dabotron is amazing. It's huge. I will say this: it is very bright. So at night, it got me, man. It was like I couldn't look at it for too long. I mean, maybe I'm just getting old here, but the other thing was around the edge. They have that digital board around the edge between the upper deck and lower deck. On third down, it does these tiger eyes, and they blink like white, purple, orange, white, purple, orange, white, purple, orange, over and over and over. And after a while, I had to rub my eyes and just try to focus on the field because the blinking, they did have a warning before the game. It said, hey, but I will say, if you're a fan out there and you have a kid maybe, or you yourself has some aversion to that, be careful because it is pretty intense, especially with the brightness, just being so used to the way the old way was. It's going to take some getting used to those night games.
Yeah, I mean, even with the day games, you see the Jumbotron to start out with. It's like watching a giant outdoor television with pure HD. So I can only imagine when you get there at night.
Maybe they should put a screen protector over it that's a little bit tinted, for the nighttime or something. I don't know. Maybe something. I don't know. But
yeah.
Anyway, everybody has suggestions. But one thing they did do, people called in on our radio show and complained about it. One thing they did do was add the timeouts back. So that's a good thing that they at least got that back in. But let's talk about the actual game and move forward. So Clemson, number 5 overall, beats the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs 48-0. Started out at halftime, though, only 13-6. Obviously, Will Shipley had a big night rushing, for 139 yards, which I wish I would have picked him for the workhorse of the week. I did not. He had 11.6 yards per carry and 2 total touchdowns with a 32-yarder as his longest. So going into halftime, though, were you concerned considering that the score was relatively tight? I mean, they were going to get the ball back. So here's my thought. When they went into halftime, I thought, man, Tech's going to get the ball. All they need is just to score. And then the game is tied up. I did not expect that at halftime.
No, I think part of it was I was frustrated that Clemson didn't run the ball more. I know there's been a lot of complaints about, utilizing this, that, or the passing game. It's like, look, it doesn't matter where you're throwing the ball to. If you're cramming it down their throats, you can throw it anywhere, and you should have some more people get open. And that's what happened as the game went on. You saw a team in the second half that has glimpses of a great team. They came out and took care of business in the first 3 drives of that third quarter, and they were able to run the ball. And you have a running back averaging 11 yards a carry, and that should have been the plan from the outset, is to just condense the game. Even if you win the game 35-3, you have a 100-yard rusher, everybody gets off the field, all that kind of good stuff. But that was the more of the frustration there. And I guess if we're going to talk about play calling, is something that you hope to see going forward against certain teams that might have issues, with fronts that may not be as big or tough as ours. But I think in the second half, you saw a really good team, and you saw DJ take charge. When they were able to run the ball, he got more comfortable. He was able to make throws down the field. People might have been frustrated with not attacking the middle of the field. I tend to say that's more or less game by game. You're going to have games where you attack the middle. You're going to have some games where you don't. And this was one of those where you've got guys that should be able to get open on those fade routes. And a couple of times I did, a couple of times I didn't. I think there's a couple freshmen that are really going to start to make an impact here soon, especially in that wide receiving room.
Yeah, when you look at the team stats overall, I think going into halftime, the score was very close, but they were leading with first downs. They were leading with total yards. They were leading the turnovers. They just weren't leading. I don't think they were at halftime. I don't think they were leading time of possession. That would be the only thing that was odd. And that was one of the reasons why I felt like they just weren't getting it into the end zone. They were marching all the way down the field. First scoring drive, field goal, marched it for 3.5 or almost 3.5 minutes, 9 plays, 70 yards. The touchdown, 6 plays, 79 yards. And then the field goal in the second quarter was 9 plays, 56 yards. So they were moving the ball down the field. They were having longer extended drives. It's just the two resulted in field goals. Now, Dabo Swinney mentioned after the game that that's going to be the difference between a championship team and a team that just, wins 10 games or just wins 9 games, is those turning those field goals into touchdowns, finishing the drives in the end zone, as opposed to BT Potter, who we love, but we just don't want to see him on the field. We want to see it we want to see him scoring touchdowns, right? Which goes back to your point of getting weapons out on the field that can do those things. Now, as they came back from halftime, Will Shipley pops a 1-play touchdown for 32 yards. And we're starting to see that Will Shipley is the man. As many people wanted to say on the radio, Houston, well, he's not even the best back in the room. That was completely false. Do you remember when we had to deal with that? Is not Will Shipley the best back in the room?
He's definitely the best back. And I would argue that I would say if there's going to be somebody out of the breakdown of this, he probably needs to be getting, half the carries, and then a fourth goes to the other two. I think behind him, if you want me to be honest, I think the second best back is Maffa. Maffa at least comes in there and wants to get a field and make a difference. I haven't been unimpressed. I'm not saying I'm unimpressed with Kobe Pace. I think he's done fine too. I just feel like when Shipley and Maffa are out on the field, they're more likely to at least break one. Maffa hasn't broken a big one yet, but he's broken a couple of 10 to 12 yarders as far as that goes. And I think Pace can get there as well. But I think Shipley right now, he's averaging 10.8 yards a carry. Get him the ball more.
Yeah. I think when you look at it, they're getting that 40 rushing attempts a game, which is what we expected when you look at where they finished the year, where they started the year, what they typically do on average. 40 rushing attempts a game. You know that DJ is going to take some of those, especially as good as he's been looking. I feel like there were times where he looked like he was stiff-legged, where he looked like he didn't have that bounce in his knees. He's not the most agile guy as much. He does seem like a Freddie Freeman out there running, but he can make cut moves that still make people miss. And so he still has that agility to be able to do that and cut hard to get extra yardage. And he's a big dude still, so he can lean forward and fall forward to get extra yardage. So you still want him he maybe not be the fastest guy like Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun, but he can still get you valuable yardage. Combining him with Shipley, I think, is what you're talking about, is maybe giving Shipley more closer to the 20 touches, and then DJ having 10, and then 10 left over for the other to make up for your other players out there. The unfortunate part about it is we kept talking about there's not a lot of running backs, right? And they need more recruiting in running backs. But right now, there's a lot of running backs. You've got Shipley, you got DJ, who is one, even though he is the quarterback. But then, like you mentioned, you really could rotate Maffa, Adams, Thomas, Pace, and on the regular. Now it seems like they've moved Pace to be the guy that goes in with Klubnik and provides that veteran presence to him, which I think is important for a young quarterback to have behind him to make sure that the plays are getting called correctly, the lineups are done correctly, kind of whisper in his ear rather, and then maybe take the ball over on the handoffs and be that sure-handed running back. So Pace seems to be fitting into that role, while Shipley and Maffa still seem to be getting, in my opinion, more of the ones touches. But I agree with you. I think that, Shipley has that break off ability to be able to just throw out some chunk yardage. And again, one play touchdown there. And then it was kind of the opposite, as you mentioned. The beginning of the game was kind of slower, but then the second after halftime, in the third quarter, one play touchdown, Will Shipley, and then again after another touchdown, the third touchdown in the third quarter was Bo Collins, one play, 32 yards pass from DJ. So two big time chunk plays there, going to the wide receivers. To me, Bo Collins is your number one guy. He is legit become the number one guy for wide receivers. Antonio Williams is that number two guy, and he's the slot guy. I don't need it. I don't need to see anymore. Antonio Williams is the second. To me, third would be Joe Ngata.
Well, and here's the deal. With that third spot, I'm interested to see what number 8 does. I know he was on a pitch count, and so he didn't get as much action. But the two times he was targeted, or maybe three, but the two that I remember he was targeted, he made a great move to get open on a comeback route. That guy missed. He got upfield. 8 looked good on that play. And then even the PI call that he got, a lot of the complaints I had last year with our receivers was they were playing for the penalty and not for the ball. He didn't get a PI called against him, but he was playing for the ball, and he was just, guy was just draped on him. They didn't call it. I don't think that's on Adam Randall at all. That was just a missed call on that. I think he did great effort. He was going for the ball. So I'm interested to see. You might have a different looking wide receiving core going into this year, especially next year, if Adam Randall really steps up. And I still think we're looking for Dakari. I don't think he's done anything negative. I think I want to say he's drawn 3 PIs in his 3 games. So at the very least, he knows how to draw a penalty going for the ball. I just think they need to do a better job of getting him open in space instead of just sending him on long routes, because I know he's capable of being the guy too.
Adam Randall could have easily finished the game with 2 receptions for over 20 yards and a touchdown. That one call that I felt like was a pass interference didn't get called. There's a couple of pass interferences that didn't get called Clemson's way versus Louisiana Tech. I think that DJ finished with below 60%, which is my yearly, my game by game yearly goal for him. He was below 60%, going 17 for 29. But if you take into the fact that they didn't call, I think, in my opinion, about 3 pass interferences, and there was, I believe, 1 drop, you add those 4 in there or take away those 4, and you're looking at over close to 65% adjusted. So for me, I still feel like he has shown consistency. There were a couple of plays, Houston, where it was just out of the wide receiver's reach. There was one to Dakari that I'm thinking of right now where it was just out of his reach. And sometimes as a fan, you think, when you're watching it from the perspective on TV, you think, oh, why didn't he throw his hands out? Why didn't he dive? Why didn't he reach? Well, the way the momentum, if you watch it in person, you'll really see the way the momentum is going, with the way the play is designed. It's very hard to just stop what you're doing and dive if the ball is even a foot or 2 off and not in the way in leading you correctly, right? Not in the way that your motion is taking you. So sometimes on TV, it's like, why didn't they just throw their hands out there? Why didn't they just dive? But in a split moment, it's really hard to do that. And so, as Dabo Sweeney mentioned, you get out there and DJ could have had a closer to 70%, maybe even up to 80% passing game if he would have made those passes. So there's still some things to clean up on DJ's point. But again, I like that he's running the ball well. I like he's cutting well. I like that he is, throwing out deep balls and they're getting caught. I like that there are wide receivers that are showing that are showing up and fighting for the ball and winning tough catches. I like that Will Shipley had a huge game because we needed that. Um, Going to the defensive side of the ball, that's where everybody's critiquing now. My first thing about the defense is, well, first of all, let's praise the guys who had total tackle leaders. You got Jalen Phillips, Tyler Venables. By the way, Tyler Venables was all over the place, I felt like.
Mhm.
Keith McGuire, RJ Mickens had a huge turnover. Malcolm Green had a turnover. Jeremiah Trotter had a great play on a ball, too, that
Mhm.
set up a score as well, I believe. So you had a lot of guys out there, and young guys got the ability to play, like Jaden Lucas, Toriano Pride, Sherrod Koval. With that, though, is a lot of people are like, man, what happened to the defense? It seemed like they struggled some more with the passing game, because it does seem like that they put up a ton of passing yards, and they did 311 passing yards, but only 12 rushing yards. 12, Houston, 12. Okay.
Yeah.
So people want to hone in on the receiving, but they couldn't run the ball at all. And also, when it comes to receiving, I just mentioned those three guys that were out there. Well, Makuba was not out there. Wiggins was not out there. Tyler Davis was not out there. Brian Bresee was not out there. There were guys that were either held out or injured or away for family matters. That I say don't beat up the defense too much.
No, I agree. I'm not as down. There's still going to be a work in progress, kind of like the offense, not necessarily as much retooling. I think people miss the point that when you're dealing with an air raid, a large portion of their offense are going to be shorter game passes, everything like you're going to give up close to 300 yards, if not more, when you deal with an air raid. That's just common. And even when you deal with that, the whole point of it is to loyal to sleep with some of these shorter passes and then pop a big one. They were able to do that. They had some great drawn up plays as far as that goes, but they didn't go for as many scores as, probably they could have. Then Clemson was able to compensate off of that with turnovers and whatnot. You were also injured. You had a ton of guys out that, the difference in this game that could have been if you had Bresee and Davis and XT, and if you had Makuba and Wiggins and even Sheridan Jones, you're missing a laundry list of players, and you're going to hopefully get them back all starting this week against Wake Forest. So it's a work in progress, but I feel like when you have a formidable defensive front to go with that, you're able to take a little bit of pressure off that secondary. The other thing, too, everyone wants to talk about how sometimes these freshman corners look lost. Yes, they're going to look lost. The freshmen. I think Toriano Pride and Jaden Lucas did the best they could and played well, considering they were a little bit more buried on the depth chart. The three guys, the reserve guys, and they came in there and did a serviceable job, despite a couple of big plays. But that's going to happen when you're relying on freshmen at that point in the game.
Yeah, again, we're continuing to discuss the Louisiana Tech versus Clemson game, where Clemson ended up winning the game 48-20. Let us know in the comments what you think. Again, looking at the stats, you had 521 yards. Again, it's hard to complain about an offensive performance, 521 yards. They forced 4 total turnovers, which Dabo Swinney mentioned could have been 6. 25 total first downs, 1 the time of possession, which has not always been easy for Clemson under DJU. Again, DJ had over 200 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Will Shipley, 339 yards, and Antonio Williams, 2 receptions, 57 yards, 1 touchdown. And again, as much as we beat up the wide receivers, Ngata had a huge catch. Bo Collins is obviously there. Antonio Williams had a huge catch as well. Just when you see those things, though, then you have the same that says, well, what happened to the tight ends? Well, as fans, we always want more, never satisfied, which is okay. I mean, that is what being a fan is all about. You want your team to just blow everybody out and be 99 overall, but it's still a work in progress. Is it where they want the team to be? No. Is it a national championship caliber team? No. Are there plenty of things that other better teams could exploit and probably win or frustrate, at least until late in the game? Of course. I don't think anybody in our position in Houston is saying that those things don't exist, right?
No, no, I don't think there's not. They're not perfect, but I also want to point out that like outside of maybe one team this year being Georgia, everybody's got something that can be exploited by somebody, including if we're breaking this down into quarters of the season. Wake Forest, NC State, and Boston College. None of those three teams are perfect. Now, all three of those teams are capable of beating Clemson this year if Clemson doesn't come in prepared. But at the same time, if Clemson comes in prepared, there are definite glaring issues with each of those teams that Clemson could win and win handily with them.
So next up, tomorrow, this is Monday. Tomorrow, Tuesday, a large portion of the team is going to travel and go up to Maryland, I believe, and pay respects to the Bresee family and in the memory of Ella Bresee. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the Bresee family, Brian, of course, and those players that are traveling. I wish them safe travels as they go and come back and celebrate the life of Ella Bresee. Again, let us know what you think in the comments. Do you agree or disagree with what Houston and I said? What were your thoughts on the offense and defense? And if you haven't already, go ahead and follow us over on Twitter at The Morgan T Show and at Radio Guy Houston.